All right. Good morning, everyone. This is the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for April 21. Can't believe we're about to get into May. It's amazing. We'll hope everyone's enjoying the week, the rain that's coming. Nice to see you all. Why don't we start with some introductions, and let me just pull up the agenda here. Drew, I can't remember do we usually pull the agenda? No, there's nothing. Okay.
No, usually we just read the names that we see on the screen.
All right. Well, why don't we start? I'm going to start at the top of my screen here. Introductions. City of Santa Rosa.
Morning, my name is Amy Lyle. I manage the long range planning team, and I will kick it over to Jessica.
Thanks, Amy. Jessica Jones. I'm the supervising planner for our current development team.
You and
this is Nancy. I'm the third leg of the stool. I'm in the transportation public works, managing the active transportation planning section.
Welcome, Nancy. Let's turn it over to Healdsburg.
Good morning, everybody. Scott Diven, Community Development Director with the City of Healdsburg.
Okay. On to Roner Park.
Jeff Beiswinger, Planning Manager.
Jeff. And I see City of Petaluma.
Good morning, everybody. Heather Hines, Interim Planning, or no, what am I? Interim Community Development Director.
Welcome, Heather.
Thank you.
Cloverdale.
Good morning, everybody. Rafael Miranda here, planner with City of Cloverdale.
Rafael, good morning. And we have the town of Windsor.
Hey, Patrick, you're on mute.
No, Patrick, it doesn't look like you're on mute, so maybe it might be a microphone connection. Why don't we go to Kim while Patrick sets up?
I'm Kim Jordan with the town of Windsor.
Right, as well as Patrick Streeter with the town of Windsor. There you go. And let's see, any other cities here on my list? That's it. So let's turn to SCTA.
I'm Chris Barney, SCTA.
Drew Nichols, SCTA.
Okay. And
Ross Glendenon, SCTA.
Hey, Ross. All right, and then RCPA.
Tanya Narath, Director of Climate Programs for the RCPA.
And this is BC Caps, also with RCPA.
And I think we missed Dana.
Oh. I'm Dana Troy with SCTA.
Excellent. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Oh, Smart. How could I forget Smart? Hey, Chris.
Good morning. Hey, Brian. Chris Bearden with Smart.
All right. And then looks like we're joined by some guests, Tom Conlin, as well as Steve Bertelbaugh. And oh, MTC. How do we forget MTC?
Ada Chan with MTC ABAG.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to administrative item number 2, approval of the minutes. So you'll see in the calendar invite, you have the meeting notes for February 17, 2022. Is there a motion to either discuss or to approve the minutes from February?
Move to approve. It's Jeff, Roner Park.
We need a second.
I do need a second, and then we can approve it unanimously if the committee agrees.
I'll second, but I haven't read them.
Does the group want to spend some time looking at it? I guess we got a second, so we can move on.
I'm sure Drew did a great job.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move on to item number 3. And before we go there, Drew, when I was doing agenda prep with Janet, she mentioned that we do have the collaborative for the second hour, but it looks like it won't start until 10:30. So do we have until 10:30 then?
Chris?
That was the plan.
Okay.
When Janet and I made a plan.
Okay, yeah, she mentioned 10, but then I noticed this morning it said 10:30. So it looks like we have lots on the agenda to take up the time, but just wanted to note a number of us would be shifting to the Napa Sonoma Collaborative at 10:30 this morning. Okay, so item number 3, RCPA discussion on building energy reach codes, pathway options, existing resources, and next steps. So I will turn this over to BC.
Great, thank you, Brian. And let's see, I'm gonna would like to share my screen. Let me see if I have permissions to do that. Okay, let's see if I did this all correctly. Can you all see that PowerPoint?
Yes.
Great. Okay, so I think since there's questions, since we don't have a full time for the meeting today, I'll go ahead and move through this fairly quickly. I don't think we need a lot of time for this. But I wanted to, first off, my name is BC Caps. I'm a climate change program specialist here with RCPA and working alongside the SCTA team. So as part of our Sonoma climate mobilization strategy that was adopted by our board last March, a year ago, one of the items, priority project items that was identified was to look at the options for adopting building energy reach codes for each of the jurisdictions, to consider that and to adopt any reach codes they may be interested in during the course of this year of 2022, understanding that additional reach codes, that the new building code cycle starts on January 1st of 2023. So you can see here from this list, here's our list of kind of of our entire Sonoma climate mobilization strategy, kind of all of our objectives that we have here. As you can see, I jumped right into the narrative, taking a second here to catch up with the slides. And as I was mentioning, one of the priority projects that was identified is looking at building energy reach codes. A number of the jurisdictions already have extensive experience on this. Some of the others, I think, have not actually done this in the past. And so we are here assembling resources and providing kind of backup and services to any of the jurisdictions that may be interested in moving this forward locally. So in general, an energy reach code is a locally adopted ordinance that goes beyond the requirements of the California State Building Code. And in this case, we're really interested in looking at those opportunities to use to increase energy efficiency or to increase improvements of any projects that would reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And a lot of that work is really focused on electrification of buildings and encouraging the electrification of buildings and the reduction of natural gas equipment over the long term. So as we look at the process, so the standards are adopted at the state level. Each of the local jurisdictions then will opt in and kind of adopt those in accordance with state law, and then have the ability to adopt additional measures on top of that if they would like. This in general, moving from the left of the screen towards the right, is a very simple timeline of some of the steps that are needed for any jurisdictions to go through that may be interested in this option over the course of this year. So it really starts with some of the basics of developing the idea for ordinance, identifying cost effectiveness studies, working with stakeholders and developing that first draft of the ordinance. Moving on forward in time, that ordinance is then reviewed by local committees. There's oftentimes a formal public process held. It is read for the first time by the local council or board, and then read a second time and adopted. For energy reach codes specifically, those then need to actually go to the California Energy Commission for review at the state level. Those comments are then reviewed and adopted by the CEC at the state level and approved at one of their business meetings. After that approval, the reach code proposal is filed with the California Building Standards Commission. And at that point, it comes back to the local jurisdiction to basically take effect with the ordinance. And then it's up to the local jurisdiction to actually implement that reach code. We are doing work now in 2022 to attempt to align any jurisdictions that want to move forward so that those reach codes can go into effect on January 1st at the exact same time as the new building code. That I want to point out, though, that's not a requirement. And these reach codes can be adopted at any time during the code sequence, and they're good until the next 3-year cycle starts. So if any jurisdictions are interested in reach codes, are interested in moving that process forward through this year, but not able to make that January 1st kind of a milestone, that's not a deal breaker in any way. Just the reach code ordinance would go into effect at whatever time it was kind of past January 1st. This is a very quick summary of what I understand is the status of the jurisdictions and work that has been done over the last few years in the current building cycle around reach codes, around electric reach codes, and then thinking about what additional plans are for the upcoming year with the upcoming code cycle. It is feedback on this slide that I'm very much would like to get your feedback on, either directly in the meeting today or with any follow-up emails. In general, we are going to attempt to do kind of keep status updates of much like this format. And I want to make sure before, as we're distributing any materials to the public or things that are going into our meeting packets, I want to make sure that they are, it's important that we really are correctly representing the work that you're doing in the local jurisdictions. So on this slide, as we come up for comments, if there's anything on this slide or anything else I've said in the presentation that really doesn't match the way your local jurisdiction is approaching this, please, I'm interested to hear that. I want to make sure we correct kind of the updates on this slide. In general, as I understand it, the city of Healdsburg, city of Petaluma, and city of Santa Rosa both all currently have reach codes or something approximating a reach code. I'll say that with an asterisk. There is the ability to restrict the installation of natural gas equipment in new construction using something that is often lumped in with the reach code discussion, but it's actually legally and technically different. And those powers come under the, I believe it's under the Health and Safety Code. And that is the path that the city of Petaluma had chosen to take. And then we know of a couple of other jurisdictions that are moving forward and considering the adoption of reach codes for this upcoming year as this code cycle. And then also I wanted to point out the town of Windsor, as I understand, adopted a reach code with the last code cycle that was challenged in court. It was rescinded by the town council. And now it's a question mark in my mind whether what the intents are for kind of the upcoming code cycle. So here's a couple of very specific questions I really wanted to bring out onto the table for discussion today. Wondering which jurisdictions may be interested in considering electric reach codes or natural gas bans, and that we should very much be working directly with. What resources might be most helpful to you that we can compile and provide. If there's any recommended actions, either that should be taken by local jurisdiction staff or by Tanya and I here at RCPA, wanting to identify those. And then it's kind of a tag-on question at the end. Everything I've been talking about so far and what I'm presenting on is really focused on new construction of buildings. Reach codes can also be used to encourage the installation of electric vehicle infrastructure, charging infrastructure, and charging equipment. Tanya's taking the lead on some of that work, but we wanted to also include that as part of the discussion for if any jurisdictions are thinking about interested in using this reach code mechanism for electric vehicle installations. That's something that we're going to be working on parallel, but slightly separate. And I also just wanted to give the opportunity for any jurisdictions to call that out. So with that, thank you. And I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen. I'm very interested to hear, turn it back over to Brian, and interested to hear feedback on anything I said.
Thanks, BC. Let's go to Heather.
Thank you, BC. So Petaluma would definitely be interested in EV. And I feel like I'm going to muddy the waters, but I have a question that's not exactly those items brought up by BC, but something that we are looking at, and I'm finding very few resources for it. And I'm wondering if anybody else is thinking about this, or RCPA, if you have any resources that maybe I haven't stumbled across. But since we have an all-electric for new construction that is both residential and commercial, and we are, and ours, we don't have to do it cyclical, it is just part of our code now. We are now getting into conversion of existing building stock. And so looking at a variety of ways to do that, both, voluntary, but I don't think voluntary is going to get us to carbon neutrality by 2030. So looking at regulatory, and then obviously the equity lens, but I am not finding that any cities in California have done what I'm terming a burnout ordinance. And I think I brought this up a couple months ago that we were kind of starting to tinker with this idea, but burnout ordinance would effectively be any time you're changing out your water heater or your furnace that you would have to go to an electric. You couldn't replace that with another gas. So I'm curious, BC, Tanya, if you know of anything or any jurisdictions, Half Moon Bay had kind of started to think about this, but then it got pulled. And it didn't find what they had kind of drafted initially to be very defensible. So I'm wondering if anyone knows of other jurisdictions.
I'll jump in just really quick with a couple of things off the top of my head. One, we're also very interested in working on existing buildings. That is, we're kind of prioritized looking at new construction first and existing buildings second. So some of our thinking on that is just a little bit behind. I have been working with Phoebe Golden, who is our Civic Spark Fellow, who is providing services to the city of Sebastopol. This is a topic they've been very much been researching, and I think may have some additional thought and resources to share there. And one other area, and possibly this is a conversation that I could organize in the course of the next week or so. We have numerous existing resources available, personal resources. And I'm thinking specifically of Christine Condon, who's with the county's Energy and Sustainability Division. This is a conversation that she and Phoebe have been having. And maybe this is actually something across jurisdictions we should widen out. So at least to bring those tables, issues of interest out onto the table. So thanks for bringing that up though.
Thank you.
Heather, more to come. All right, Scott from Healdsburg.
I just want to provide an update and some clarifications on our REACH code. Our REACH code does have a couple of exceptions in it. We do require electric heating appliances, so water and space heating, but we do have exceptions for cooking, fireplaces, and pool heaters. The council recently had a discussion to see if there was interest in going completely all electric, and that didn't quite get the traction that some were hoping for. And so, but they did agree that they'd like to remove the exception for pool heaters. So we're in the process of doing the cost effectiveness studies for that. There's also a contingent in the community that's been pushing really hard just to go similar to what Petaluma did with the natural gas ban altogether, but that did not get traction with the council. So that's where we're at.
Very good. Thank you, Scott.
And so BC, if there's any additional updates, we'll ask the jurisdictions to follow up directly with you. And then
that sounds great. And the one last thing I want to add, I have started to compile a resource library of documents that I'm just right now housing on a Google Drive folder. That link is embedded as part of the agenda item, as part of the agenda packet. I will include that link in the chat to the Zoom right now. And so for any jurisdictions that are thinking about this and want to dig further, it has links to a lot of existing materials I've been able to find locally, regionally, and from the state on this issue. So thanks.
Thanks, BC. And then just a quick update for County of Sonoma. Our building permit Sonoma took the item as a workshop to the board at the top of the month. And so we'll go through a process now based on direction from the board. I saw that we do have an agenda item scheduled before the end of the year to get back to the board on potential reach codes. So I'll send those resources along to building and put you in touch with them.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, BC. All right. Anyone else? And I'll just recognize Carrie. Thanks for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right.
And yeah, just a quick update. Our Climate Action Committee is currently discussing reach codes, as BC you probably know from Phoebe. And part of the struggle is just the capacity the city has to do to go through that with the Energy Commission. So right now, I think they're looking at tier 1 in terms of our green building codes, understanding that the state is likely to get there in the next round of building codes potentially.
Great. All right, let's move to item number 4, SB 743, implementation vehicle miles traveled, recommended reduction strategies. And I believe this will be led by Chris.
Hey, thanks, Brian. I actually have a couple updates. One is on the
Chris, it looks like your audio just went out. It shows that you're unmuted, but
did maybe a Bluetooth get picked up device maybe?
I think he's in the same office with Patrick.
Any sound now?
Oh, there we are.
All right. Sorry, we have a new computer, so still getting things dialed in here. Sorry for that delay. Let me go ahead and share my screen as well. So yeah, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to provide a quick update on progress we're making on the VMT reduction and mitigation calculator, and also provide some information from MTC on VMT and SB 743 support. So let me go ahead and jump to this first item. So at the last steering committee meeting for the VMT reduction calculator group, Fair and Peers presented on the final list of VMT reduction measures that'll be included in the tool. So I've included the staff report or the memo that went out to that group in the agenda, just to provide an overview of what is going to be included in the final tool. So we've also included some notes down at the bottom addressing some additional types of measures and how they could be represented in the tool. So right now, schedule-wise, we're looking at having a draft ready to review by the steering committee in late May, and then incorporating any feedback from that and rolling out the final tool in July or August, and having a training session with all of you folks, the PAC, and inviting the TAC to that as well. So we have the engineering and public works folks involved in that as well. So one other change that we've made is Fair and Peers recommended basing the tool on their TDM Plus tool format, which is slightly more polished than the Sandag Excel tool. So the steering committee was on board with that. So the final tool will look a little slicker than the Sandag tool. So our next meeting for the steering committee will be probably the 3rd or 4th week of May. So just working out some details with Fair and Peers, and then I'll get a poll out to the steering committee group to get that scheduled. So happy to answer any questions about the VMT mitigation and reduction tool before moving on to the next. Okay, so I will go ahead and provide an update. And Ada, please jump in if you have any information on this as well. I'm going to stop sharing briefly. MPC staff have reached out and actually have a plan for providing some SB 743 implementation support over the next year or so. So they'd like to hold a series of 6 to 7 informative sessions in each of the counties. These will be led by a consultant team made up of staff from Nelson Nygaard and Fair and Peers. So it's Megan Weir and Matt Goyne, if you know them. I know Matt's been doing some work down in Petaluma, so should be familiar. The first session is really going to be focused on the basics. So what is SB 743? What are jurisdictions required to do? And then digging into greater detail in the future sessions. So one thing they asked is if the local counties would prefer to have these included in existing meetings. So I wanted to check in with this group to see if there's interest in piggybacking on the PAC or setting up a separate meeting for these sessions. You know, I figured it would probably be efficient to have it directly after our PAC meetings, but don't want to interfere with the housing collective meetings at all either. So happy for any feedback on that as well. So is there general consensus that there's interest in these learning sessions, number one, and should we try and line those up with our existing PAC meeting schedules?
I mean, I think it makes the most sense, but just being mindful of the collaborative work. And did you say that there's a finite number of meetings?
6 or 7, and I saw Ada 6. Okay, so it sounds like 6 is the number. Probably looking at an hour, hour and a half. Does that sound about right, Ada?
Yeah, I think the thing is that some of the earlier stuff, there are less jurisdictions that need support on that. And so maybe it can be a tight meeting. And I don't know where the housing collaborative is in its work, right? Because the housing elements are in a different place too. So maybe there is some room between the two to maybe do the first couple meetings before the PAC meeting and then start to figure out where everyone is on their need. Because I think it's about how do we make sure people are getting what not everyone shows up to a meeting when it's not going to cover stuff they don't need, right?
Sure. Okay. Well, why don't go ahead, Jane.
Oh, we have full agendas and we are meeting monthly now, but maybe we could make use of that time between 10 and 10:30.
Does that sound like
VMT does impact housing?
Absolutely. But it's a lot of the same people, right? So we just need our Napa friends to join.
I'll Jane, I'll touch base with you and Janet and MTC and see. We're looking at June for that first meeting, so maybe we can look at the agenda items for June, and if there's enough time to squeeze it in, either before or that 10 to 10:30 or after, we can do that. Ada, like you said, I think the later sessions will include more universally useful information, since a lot of you already have some work done, and the first session or two are really supposed to be pretty elementary. So
and in the
we can make it
following,
work.
and in the following sessions, it may be your public works team, or it might be other, maybe we tack on to the TAC.
Yeah.
So we should, let me sit down with Kruti, go through the curriculum, and we'll figure it out together.
Yeah, and I know the TAC members will definitely, quite a few of them will be interested in participating as well. So yeah, that's a great idea too.
I'll follow up with Janet. We'll get just the overarching schedule for Housing Collaborative, VMT. I know she mentioned there's a lot of agenda items to try and fit into the shortened PAC meeting, so I want to be mindful of that. And it looks like our next meeting would be June 23rd. And so why don't we just tentatively schedule or plan for that to be this introduction to get that work started.
Good.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Okay, so I'm in charge of follow-up first. Okay, I'm just gonna own that item.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And then I think we'll stay with you on item number 5.
Yeah, and I'm going to share my screen again. All right, let me get this going. All right, so it's been about a year since we've updated the permitted and pending development database. Like to kind of kick up the annual update of this process. So just to provide a very brief overview of what this database is, I think most of you are familiar and have been involved in this process over the last couple of years, but SCTA maintains a database tracking pending and permitted development. This mostly feeds into our travel model, but it's used for other studies, and we provide some mapping tools and summaries for you all to use in your work as well. Been about a year, like I've said before, since we've updated the information for most jurisdictions. We've received some more current updates from a few jurisdictions that we've rolled in, but you can see that for many jurisdictions, last information we rolled in was last spring. So due for an update. So tried to streamline the update process as much as possible. But each year we look to answer the following questions as we update the database. We cycle projects that have been completed or withdrawn out of the database. We date any project status in the database. Right now, we categorize projects as pre-application projects, under review projects, approved projects, and in construction projects. So if any have moved anywhere along that timeline, we like to track that as well. We also would like to update projects if they've changed significantly, if there are a different number of housing units or square feet for non-housing projects. One thing that's very important is including new projects in the database, especially the larger projects that we really want to include in the travel model and our summaries. And then one thing we added last year was housing affordability. So that's a separate field in the database that you'll see in the review tables. We'd like to include as much of that information as possible as well. So what we've done in the past and what I'm planning on doing this year is sending out a summary for each jurisdiction that has a number of housing units, square feet of different development types that are in the pipeline for each jurisdiction, and then a detailed summary table showing an example here that includes name of the project, the traffic analysis zone that it's in. This is the travel model traffic analysis zone, jurisdiction name, address, status, whether or not it's in a PDA, and then number of units or the square footage for the different projects. So you can see that in addition to the housing unit column, there's also an affordable unit column now as well. So please take a look at that, especially if you haven't reviewed that in the past, so we can dial that information in. One thing I did want to note is for mixed use projects, there'll be a separate line for each use. So that's just the way we can export this for review. In the actual database, it kind of, there's a hierarchy, so it'll be embedded in there, but for review, there'll be a separate line for mixed use projects. And it looks like Ada has did you have a quick question, Ada?
Well, maybe a comment and a question. So if you have more to say, I can wait till the end.
So one thing we do is we map out the pending projects in a web map as well. So here's a screenshot from that tool. To the map is actually included in the staff report in the agenda packet. So this is one way to browse the contents of the database as well and see what's going on in your jurisdiction and surrounding areas as well. This version of the map actually shows different size dots for different size of projects. And so that scales as you zoom in and out as well. So before I move on to the next subtopic, maybe I should get to that question that you had, Ada, on the
Yeah. So, and I might not have brought it up at this table. MTC has been looking at data collection, and you have been tortured by us. But in particular, we were looking at developing a platform for data collection, and we've been in conversation with HCD. And I guess I'm aware of how much you all are asked for information and wondering how existing systems can be used more efficiently. And one example being, I'd actually asked for the time from Jane's meeting of getting pipeline of all affordable housing, because we're looking at the BAFA regional bond and trying to figure out how much money we need for that. And the request went out to Sonoma County, not Bryan. And we hadn't gotten a response, but it's about setting the amount for the bond, right? What's the gap for affordable housing funding needed? And I'm wondering if this data is adequately reported through your APRs, and is that a place where that information can be collected? So you've gotten this request from Chris. I know that the county also got a request from Enterprise. You know, we'll be working on our future model. So just wondering if how the APR sits in this quality of information, that as we're talking to HCD about how they can collect better information and more detailed information, like linked to parcels and things like that. So if anybody had, I don't know if any of you planning directors have a thought about that, but I'd be interested.
With the goal being one ask covers all these needs.
Right.
Right. There's a lot of overlap, right? We all went through the APR in April here. So yeah, I mean, to the degree, and I'd like to take this back, we have one staff person that works on putting the APR together, and we get this ask pretty consistently through the year. And so I'd like to get to a place, at least from Permit Sonoma, so we're not having to go back and ask each time. And there's just not just it's for the efficiencies, but just, as these funding opportunities come and we're trying to develop more affordable housing, we want to be ready for those. And I did just, Chris, I know so our Permit Sonoma had gone to the board on Tuesday to talk about general plan. And there was a nice shout out to the SCTA travel model as one example of how all of our jurisdictions work together and coordinate on all things housing and transportation. And so it's important, can you help me like complete the sentence of, it's important for jurisdictions to maintain this database with up-to-date information because it impacts us how?
Yeah, it feeds into the travel model. So, there's the straight data side, right? There's a resource we have and we can share and look at, where development is expected to happen in the long term and the short term. So, a lot of people, that'll be used for different projects at SCTA and also the jurisdictional level, but it also feeds into the travel model that's used to prepare traffic studies and for environmental work, for general plans, specific plans, and individual projects. So, there are kind of two different sides, right? Like just the data that's used for non-modeling purposes and studies and summaries, and then feeding that into the travel model as well. That's used a variety of different.
So very important. Maybe that's the big takeaway, right? Is
and there have been times in the past where important projects haven't been included in the travel model, and we really want to avoid that. That was one of the reasons we decided to start this project.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Let's go to, I think, Heather first.
I just had a quick logistical question, Chris. So do you typically update that once a year? Is that the typical schedule? And do you send, I don't remember seeing that in the past. I'm guessing we have a lot of change in Petaluma, both in terms of status and new projects, given that it's been a year. So I want to make sure I keep my eye out for that. Do you know when you're thinking of sending it? And is there thought of doing it like twice a year to keep it more current? Or is that just like kind of a resource drain to do it twice a year?
It is quite a bit of work to make the update, but I'm definitely open to doing it more frequently if you see a need to do that. I know Santa Rosa in the past has requested we do it twice a year. So, if we can dial in the process to kind of streamline it, that's definitely something we can do. As far as timing goes, I'm planning on sending out the review materials in the next 2 weeks. And then, providing as much, usually we ask for a 4 to 6 week turnaround on that. And I'm happy to meet individually with each jurisdiction to kind of go through the tables and the review materials and everything as well. For Petaluma specifically, I think Olivia has been the main contact point, but I'll make sure you're copied.
Yeah, if you could copy me, I think that would be great, because I probably have my finger on the pulse of the current planning piece of it and the status. So I just want to make sure we're getting it turned around and back to you as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's great. And, I've already gone through and reviewed any materials you all have posted online and tried to make kind of a quick first pass. So we're not, those review materials are as up to date as possible as what you already have out there.
Awesome.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That'll make it easier. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yep.
All right, let's go to Carrie and then Jeff.
Yeah, I know Ada and I have actually had several conversations about this in the past. It's not terribly difficult for Sebastopol because we don't have, a gazillion projects like Santa Rosa, San Francisco, others do. But I guess my only comment would be, since we are reporting housing stuff in such detail to the state already, it seems like whatever we do needs to be coordinated with them, because it seems like they're just kind of going to do whatever they're going to do anyway for the whole state. If there's any way to get that information from them as a transitional, we obviously all do that in March, April every year. And then just so you're aware, Chris, I don't know if you're connected in, I get a quarterly request from the Economic Development Board, Sonoma County EDB, about hospitality projects too. And that seems like another one where, it's a separate little email here and there, but that seems like one where making sure that you're getting information from them might be helpful too. And I don't know if that's planning departments always reporting on that versus economic development potentially, because I just happen to sit on, Noah and I are kind of both on both of those.
Thanks. Yeah, that's really good information. I do review the transit occupancy tax report they put out every year, and so have received information from them in the past. So I'll make sure to check in with them to make sure we're current with EDB. On the housing side too, I'll investigate. I'm not familiar with the APR process, so I'll investigate that and see if there's any way we can at least try and sync up the housing side of this a little better with the state.
Chris, I can go over it with you. We get all of the 2020, we get all of the previous year's data in May of each year. And so if we coordinate, then maybe you can do your second update in the fall, which will catch you. So that might be a way to get two in without as much capacity being used locally.
Right. And, there is a non-housing side as well. There are generally quite a few non-housing projects that are important to capture as well. So, yeah, one other thing to consider.
All right, Jeff.
Well, I think a couple of things. This is probably just a Rohnert Park and a county issue, but we do have a very large casino, and which might be doubling in size. So I'm wondering how we want to plug that into the model, because it's going to be kind of a big localized impact in that area. And because it's not in our jurisdiction, so we wouldn't really report it to you. So do we just but it should probably get in there somehow. And then the other thing, this probably isn't a now issue, but it's just something to think about maybe for future years. We very well might have a couple of shopping centers that get closed down and repurposed in the next few years. And can this model subtract and then add things? So anyway, because I think right now just add stuff.
So we can definitely subtract things that are removed. So yeah, if there are any significant changes like that, please let me know, either as part of this process or just outside of the process. The casino we have included as a large commercial and
okay, so that's how it's accounted for. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
as soon as we know the new numbers, we can just get those plugged in somehow. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get them in. So we're capturing that. Yeah, and we can subtract and add. So yeah, definitely
great
within the capabilities of the model.
Right. Any other thoughts, comments?
So just to kind of wrap up, I'll get some reports out to everyone within the next 2 weeks or so. And then include in that request email kind of a turnaround period. And then if you would like to meet just to kind of go through the process and the data and the details in more detail, please let me know and we can set up a call or a meeting to go through that. And then Ada, I'll check in with you about the APR process to see if we can kind of line that up.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, there was one other piece to this that I wanted to touch on, and that is just give a brief update on the travel model land use scenarios, where those are at, and plans for updating those this year. So on the travel model base year, I've worked with Fair and Peers over the last year to update that from a base year of 2015 to 2019. We were able to do that using information from the pending development database, especially looking at those pending projects that were completed. Also checking in using census data and American Community Survey census data, grabbing California Department of Finance population estimates, and then also using Sonoma County assessors data, which isn't great, but can give us an idea of kind of how things are changing and developing in the county. So one other thing we track in the model, we have 2 forecast scenarios that we generally use. These are adapted for different projects as necessary, but we maintain a general plan build out scenario, which estimates housing and non-housing development build out for each jurisdiction at the TAZ level across the county. So I last updated this in 2016 to 2018 using different planning projects and documents and data available to estimate these build out conditions. And so in the agenda packet, I've included a list of documents that were used for this and also build out assumptions on pages. So if you could review those and let me know if there are any local planning documents that have been completed since then that should be considered, I can dig in and make sure our estimates are up to date. One thing that is also always very helpful for this is if you or your consultants have actually gone through and done the calculations already on build out, we can roll those directly into the model. So that's the preferred way to do this, to use your calculations directly in the model. So if you have those, let me know as well, and we'll roll those in directly. We also maintain a 2050 forecast that's based on MPC and ABAG forecasts. Plan Bay Area 2050 has been adopted since the last time we developed the scenario. So I'm in the process of updating the scenario as well. So the way we do this is use jurisdiction level population, housing, and employment forecast control totals from the Plan Bay Area estimates, and then allocate those out to the travel model traffic analysis zones based on general plan build out allocations. So, in some cases the Plan Bay Area estimates are somewhat close to general plan build out. Sometimes they vary. So if there are pretty large differences between those two, I generally like to check in with you all to make sure that, that different development pattern represents what you think may occur in your jurisdiction. So there may be an email or a call from me at some point this year checking in on that as well. But that's the status of our land use assumptions for the travel model right now. So I just wanted to give a quick update, and I'm also happy to meet to talk about this as well, get you up to speed on the travel model in general, how it works, and then how we update the land use assumptions.
So Chris, since we're all going through our housing element updates, I'm assuming towards the end of the year, early next year, there'll probably be a big update reflected.
Yeah, I'll need to roll those in. Let me go ahead and bring up that table of planning documents. It's here in the agenda packet. This is what I have right now. So anything in black text has already been incorporated into the general plan build out estimate. Anything in blue or red is either underway or completed and hasn't been rolled in yet. So if you could take a look at this for your jurisdiction and let me know if there's anything else going on that should be rolled in. And yeah, those blue elements aren't completed yet. So We need to take care of those as they are. And a number of these, like the housing element in Petaluma, Santa Rosa General Plan, a few other things really need to be rolled in.
And unincorporated, we'll probably want to include the 3 specific plans.
Yeah.
Process.
So Amy's on the call, but for Santa Rosa, I don't know if the general plan is update is completed, but that's not my wheelhouse. But Amy, maybe you could clarify that.
Yeah, I think that should probably be underway, right? Not completed.
Yep. Thanks, Nancy.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It's another table to take a quick look at. You know, if you aren't providing build out calculations directly, this is, you know, the density ratio that we've used to estimate that for each jurisdiction. So if there are any changes here, let me know as well.
And Chris, you'll follow up with an email just on a deadline that you need this from as well?
Yeah. Yep. You know, what I can do, this is kind of a longer term thing that'll be going on throughout the year. So what I can do is send out where we're at now, just a summary for each jurisdiction later on this year, probably in the summary or in the summer, along with the deadline for reviewing this type of information. So I want to streamline it. And I know the pending development is, you know, it's some work and I don't want to pile everything on right now all at once.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris. Okay, well, I will be happy to report back to Janet that she was worried that we weren't going to be able to get to what we feel, what the group feels like is most valuable is the standing updates. And so I'll be happy to report back to her that we can, that we've been able to start that here at 10 o'clock. So why don't we go to item number 6, standing updates, a discussion to cover both member updates, housing element, Napa Sonoma collaborative update, any updates from recent board direction or discussion, SCTA board, that is. You know, anything that's a priority, things that members want to bring up. So let's see if anyone wants to kick us off there.
I think we can do the Napa Sonoma collaborative updates in half an hour when that meeting starts. Unless there's somebody on here who wants to hear stuff now that won't be there.
Jane, do you want to just give maybe a high level summary just for folks that won't be there?
We have most of our regional AFFH stuff done and ready, and we're packaging up, and everyone's getting a little folder on Dropbox with all your stuff and your maps and everything in it. So that's going well. We've got great feedback from developers on the developer tool, and we're going to be closing the first round of review tomorrow, and we're asking for parcels for the next round for next week from cities. And yeah, new work plan coming up. So think about what you want to, what we can do for you. There's also some surveys coming out. Oh, and the last thing I want to mention is that as we're out doing on the ground, now that we're outside of Zoom meetings and we're on the ground more, we're doing some tabling and outreach. And we're taking the ABAG survey, community outreach survey that they put together and adding the question on what city do you live in? And we're taking that with us whenever we're doing outreach events. So, and we would ask that everyone do the same thing, so that if we're at the Citrus Fair this weekend, but it's not just Cloverdale residents that show up at the Citrus Fair. So where we have people who come by our booth, who are from somewhere else, we will give them the survey and pass it on to whatever jurisdiction it belongs to. So we think it'd be a great collaborative idea if other jurisdictions did the same thing. And that's it. We'll talk later at 10:30.
Thanks, Jane. All right, I'll just provide a quick update for County of Sonoma. So we went to the board to kick off our, somewhat kick off our general plan update. And so we provided on Tuesday, just an overview, introduction. We have new supervisors on our board. And just to build the awareness that the update is coming, we presented just on the funding requests that we'll need. And so as we start the budget discussions here in June, we look forward to joining a few of you on your comprehensive updates to the general plan.
Hey, Brian, a question on that. Is there, as sort of in the middle of county area out here, is there a way I can talk to you about potential engagement, particularly on some of the transportation and conservation issues?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll connect with you offline. I'll go next since we're here. We have officially adopted a gas station ban. We did the second reading for that last Tuesday, so that goes into effect 30 days. We have our climate action committee is also putting together a climate action framework, and that is well on its way. I think it'll be presented to our council in late June. Our council has also, and thank you all for your input on planning commission composition over the last few months or year. After about 1.5 years, our city council is changing our planning commission to from allowing one member in the zip code to kind of tightening that up a little bit, but still allowing one out of city limits, but within the 3 school districts geography. And they're also reducing the number of commissioners from 8 to 5. 8 was 7 plus an alternate, which is kind of crazy. We've just had a couple of long-standing vacancies, one of which is Jane's fault. And then in terms of the housing front, our council did approve the Huntley Square 10-unit townhome subdivision that has design review coming up fairly shortly, and then hopefully they'll get started on that. We did receive the Woodmark SB 35 proposal after tribal consultation concluded, so we're working on that. And the Habitat for Humanity is doing a 4-unit townhome. They got a good reception in their preliminary review, and they've now submitted their final review for that. And the 18-unit Barlow townhome final map, affordable housing, they have 2 inclusionary units that they're doing is in final processing. So, and if you know anyone who is interested in providing community public sculpture, we do have a call out for our community sculpture garden in Ives Park, and we're also working on a couple of studies to naturalize Calder Creek and do some stormwater green infrastructure improvements towards the laguna for that. So lots of interesting stuff in Sebastopol right now.
Thanks, Gary.
Well, I can jump in. This is Jeff, Rohnert Park. Well, I already dropped the bomb on the casino, but anyway, got a couple other things going on. We just approved design review approval for the first 150 homes to be built in Sonoma Mountain Village. So that kind of kicks off the residential part of that project. We also have a couple of kind of retail uses that want to move in to Sonoma Village, including a brew pub. So that could be interesting. Let's see, on the residential front, University District is continuing to build homes. They've kind of we're taking a model home complex to the Planning Commission next week for their Sandalwood project. So that'll be another housing development. They'll start in Somo. I mean, not in Somo, in University District. Let's see, what else do we have? We also have going to the Planning Commission, kind of a largish industrial park on the west side, about 180,000 square feet. And we have a couple hotels under construction, and then the general plan is underway. We're expecting to get a draft of the EIR to review here in a couple of weeks, with a goal of releasing the EIR for that in probably June, I think, for the general plan. We also have the housing element underway, and we have the policy document for the general plan pretty much wrapped up. That'll be going to the council probably next month. And what else did we have going on? The city council decided to purchase a little 32-acre parcel in the middle of town for downtown. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Jack.
Working yet?
It is.
Oh, wonderful.
There you go.
So I'll just give a quick update on Windsor. We were planning on taking the gas station ban, I think in March or April. We've pushed that back a little bit, but it is going to the Planning Commission in May, and then followed by the council shortly thereafter. We have a lot of affordable housing developments, most of them over 100 units, either in construction or under review right now. So the pipeline is looking really good as far as affordability. Our housing element update is also underway. We kind of found a shortfall on our sites inventory, so we're working to resolve that, but we do anticipate having an admin draft available by the end of May. So probably starting the public hearings this summer. And I think that's about it. I did tune into the Roanoke Park council meeting yesterday to hear the announcement about the purchase of the State Farm property, and it was kind of fun to see the celebratory atmosphere over there. So that was kind of a nice little highlight. And that's all I got to report right now. Thanks. Oh, actually, I want to just touch on BC earlier. You were talking about the reach codes updates and Windsor status as far as all electric. So we retracted that based on a lawsuit, but now we're looking at Santa Rosa's success in fighting the same lawsuit. And we don't have a date set, but we do plan on taking the all electric back in front of our Planning Commission and Council to consider reinstating that now that we've seen it successfully defended.
That's great news. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
I can go next for Santa Rosa. Amy Lyle had to hop off, so I'll update on advanced planning also. But from a current development side, things are moving along. Kind of interesting. We've got, it seems like we have just as many mini storage projects as we do housing projects, which I find concerning, but we've just got an incredible amount of new development and projects underway. And of course, I'm sure everybody's feeling the pain, but not enough staff. We've lost a few key staff members recently, but we are recruiting right now, and hopefully we'll have 5 new city planners on board by this summer. So we're looking forward to that and the hopeful relief that will provide. From an advanced planning side, the general plan update is underway. We just finished up outreach on our alternatives, and we'll be taking that to a joint meeting of our Planning Commission and Council in May. We're also working on missing middle. We just kicked off an educational piece workshop on that this last Tuesday. And then our housing element is moving along smoothly. We are currently reviewing the admin draft. So it's just a brief update.
And Jessica, I have to apologize to Jessica because Rohnert Park banned mini storage about 5 years ago, so you're probably getting our share.
Yeah,
So
I'm not quite sure why we have so many mini storage. It concerns me on a personal level that perhaps people are not abiding by whatever that, forget her name, but there was that book that came out.
Parking Joy.
Yeah, something where it was like, you know,
Yeah.
if you're not using it for a year, like throw it away. Like apparently people are
Throw
not
it
throwing
out.
things away, and we're building more mini storage to store more crap. But anyway, that's my personal opinion.
anyway,
So thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Unintended consequences there. All right. I think we've had a few jurisdictions pop
I'll
off,
go
but
for-
Raphael, why don't you go ahead?
Sorry, yeah, I'll just give a quick one for Cloverdale. Not a huge amount on the current planning side. We have probably the fourth or fifth iteration of a 33 lot subdivision going to the Planning Commission next month. This time for a precise development plan. So they did their preliminary a couple years ago now, and now it's precise. But you know, like I said, this project's been around for 20 years. Was a 19 lot, now it's 33. The site's got some issues with just landslides and you know, visibility. There's one thing in our code about building above a 400-foot elevation line, and it's pretty much all above that. But so we'll see how that goes. It was interesting with housing last time. Affordability or affordable projects seemed to, they were just getting the crap beat out of them. Let's see how they like a market rate one that's in trees and in a hard site. Yeah, we'll see. But other than that, yeah, housing elements moving forward. We don't, yeah, like Jessica mentioned, we've been understaffed for quite a while. We don't really have any engineering staff in-house. We're planning directors doing encroachment permits. We're taking calls about water leaks in the street. So anybody's got any engineering techs that they like to let go, please send them our way. Other than that, yeah, we're moving forward. So that's about it for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Raphael.
Could I ask a question, make an update?
Please.
Two things that are happening with ABAG MTC. One is in May, we've been working with Opticos on some SB9 kind of objective design standards. Some of you have been on the focus groups and giving input on that. Those should be released in May. Something that you might be able to look at for examples of difficult sites. And the suggestion is people might want to adopt kind of an SB9 overlay, where if an applicant comes in with this and doesn't meet the existing residential code requirements, that these objective design standards could kick in. So just if you're doing work on that, something you can use as a resource. And then we are trying to do the pipeline projects, as mentioned earlier in the meeting, of affordable housing sites. And wondering if you all would, we'll be asking, what we would like to ask is your housing element consultants, because we know they've been working on site selection and all that for you to meet your RENA. So just so you know, there'll be an email coming out. And if you could release your consultants to share that with us, that would be great. Thanks.
Thanks, Ada. Can I ask what you're going to be doing with that information?
We're trying to estimate the amount of pipeline affordable housing projects, and the financial gap would be the amount that we're going to go for the regional bond for. So we're doing that throughout the region, and everywhere else we're just asking the county for the projects. But Jane kind of pointed out that since we're in the middle of housing element updates, getting the most recent data is kind of important, right? We really want to get a good number to help make those projects happen.
Nothing that's not public yet.
Okay, any other members with updates before we turn it over to public comment? All right, well, let's turn it over to any members of the public want to provide comment this morning.
Yeah, I have one question about the population estimates. I'm looking at a sheet that shows that last year we had a decline in population in every jurisdiction. Curious how this affects our predictions and planning process.
That's
I can
great
take a
question.
shot.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. We've been noticing that as well, and some of the state level forecasts are showing flat or reduced population in the future as well. So yeah, this is definitely something we're aware of and a trend that we'll be watching going forward.
Thanks, Chris. Right. Any other public comment? Great. We have a motion to adjourn. Give us a little time before the collaborative.
Also move.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for the time this morning, and hope to see you all, some of you, at 10:30.
See you soon.
Bye.
I know.
Bye.